Afternoon and welcome to the City of Helena City Commission Administrative Meeting, July 10th, 2024. The time is 4 p.m. This meeting is called to order. Madam Clerk.
City Attorney Dodd.
Here.
City Manager Perkins.
Here.
Commissioner Dean.
Here.
Commissioner Logan.
Here.
Commissioner Reed.
Here.
Commissioner Shirtliff.
Here.
Mayor Collins.
Here. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City Commission Administrative Meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide this alternative meeting format in the city's effort to broaden public participation. Please be patient as we may experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome your public commentary. Please read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage and your participation. Commissioners.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we were all at the dedication of the Fever Trail Memorial last week, lost track of time. And so I wanted to see what we needed to do to move forward with. I believe we had consensus to look at the designating the brand as a trail. And I think, again, just seeing the community's support there, it would be great to know how we move forward on that, assuming there is still consensus to consider that as an option.
Yes.
Mayor, nothing's changed. We still need to work our way through the annexation subdivision. So the facts are the same as last time we had a report.
Can I ask a question though? I'm wondering, because looking at the map, it looks like the annexation is a piece. So is it possible to designate the parts that are already ours a trail in the meantime, pending that last piece? I guess I'm just not sure if we need to wait.
I guess Mayor and Commissioner could look at designating part of it. We can't name a county right away, but I guess we could do it in phases, but we'll look into that for that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, please. So, let's say maybe 10 days ago or so, we absolutely all received, I'm assuming you're getting the same, piece that I do, from the National League of Cities. And they, I guess they sent us an email about the Supreme Court ruling on the Grants Pass versus Johnson. I'll just read a brief snip from it. It says, the Supreme Court held in Grants Pass versus Johnson in favor of preserving local control and upholding local ordinances regulating camping on public property. And they went on and elaborated. I just think it might be working if there is consensus from the commission, maybe a staff presentation on what that means.
Go ahead.
Consensus.
Yes.
There, the decision was probably a little over a week old now. Our staff has listened in on overviews from those attorneys. Our attorneys reviewed the impact of the decision. We met with the press yesterday, answered questions. Plan on having the city attorney giving an update Monday night under the city manager's report in terms of where we're at. At this point, I see the chief back here and the city attorney. Until we fully digest the impact of that decision, we're going to continue addressing the issues on a status quo basis. I think our people are doing an excellent job as we speak. So we're not rushing to change things. But I think the context of that decision and what it means moving forward is presently being analyzed, and I think it could be important to have a city manager's report in more detail and probably a written synopsis of what that means.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners? Thanks. Recommendations from Helena Citizens Council. HCC Representative Sonda Gobb, you have the floor.
Let me get my marching orders. What we have
our updates are, we have new outreach materials. We will be attending farmers market. We have also been receiving input about public regarding ideas and issues in their immediate neighborhood. So we will be probably bringing you more recommendations. And we're excited to be working with you and serving our public. So that's all.
Thank you. Comments or questions for Representative Shaw? Thank you. City Manager's report.
Mayor, with your permission, I'd like to invite the Public Works Director to the commission brief update on the fire.
Please.
Mayor and Commission. There's in the paper, there says there was a 1 acre fire that was by the 10-mile plant. That was caused by the transformer that feeds the 10-mile treatment plant. It blew up last night and started the fire, and Baxendale Fire Department was able to get there very quickly and contain the fire itself. With the transformer, it went down. We had to take the 10-mile treatment plant offline. We were able to, this talks about our resiliency in the city of Helena, because we have the Missouri River plant that was able to keep up with the usage. The tanks were down a little bit, but no one is the wiser and no one knows anything more. And Northwestern Energy was able to get the transformer back online around noon today. So we've started to catch back up with the water we had lost. So all is good, but could have been a disastrous situation. So we're looking at how we can try and prevent this in the future.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Presentations. Public safety discussion, Director Danielson and or Chief Campbell and or Chief Petty.
Mayor, I'm gonna defer.
Mr. Mayor, this agenda item is for ongoing discussion from the results of the election. As we're all aware, the mill levy for additional staffing for police and fire failed, but bond for a third fire station passed. The details about next steps are probably best addressed by the finance director.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. We talked as a team internally about next steps on the bond levy. I think that we have some work to do in regards to understanding the design, architecture, scope of building a new fire station, and in addition to the transfer of land from Public Works to the general fund. I did speak with our bond counsel about, timing. We don't have to immediately go out for a bond. We can do our homework first on the building of the fire station, and then at that time develop the bond papers and bring that to the commission as far as what that will look like, and the structure of that bond. And then thereafter, once that information is all solidified, then at that point we go out to the voters to ask for a levy to pay for the bond. So it's just kind of step one is to get all our homework done. Step two is to work with our bond counsel about structuring the bond. And three, then getting approval from the commission, and then for issuing the levy for collection on payments of the bond. So we would not issue the bond and levy the taxes until the bond is in place to pay the actual debt service of the bond.
Yes.
Mayor, I think part of that discussion, and we're still thinking through it. Building the building is one thing. What would an interim use be? And also, what would a future strategy be relative to staffing for the fire station? So I think we still have some more work to do on options for consideration by the governing body. And we're not there yet, but I want you to know that we're working on it. And that would be a part of the financial discussion as well.
So when we get the next update, I guess if we could possibly include like a timeline of what that would look like. One of the things I'm thinking about is,
our need for a co-located training facility has not gone away. Our need to move the hazmat apparatus into town instead of, I mean, thank you to Montana City for being so gracious and letting us keep that there, but I mean, we need to get that into town sooner rather than later. So I think that may be.
Commissioner, I think you're right on. There are unmet needs within the department. That's part of the discussion that we're having. So I think that there would be an interim. Well, first there would be, when do we issue bonds? When do we start spending money relative to design? What's reimbursable down the road, et cetera. What would the interim use of the facility look like? And what strategies would exist to staff at the fire station?
Go ahead, you might be asking the same question that I am.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as we look to timeline and, discussions about the stopping part, it would be great if we could coordinate or at least consult with the school district, because I suspect they will also be moving forward with strategies around their bonds as well. And I know that there was some feedback from the community about having so many bonds all at once. So it would be great if we could have some sort of discussion about timing and factor that into our decision-making or thoughts on going forward with any additional.
Mayor?
Yes.
We meet with the school district on a quarterly basis. We'll do our best. We did have discussions before the commission and after the commission made a decision. And independently, the school district shows its state.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For Ms. Danielson, would you repeat what you had said about going back to the voters?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor and Commissioner Logan, there wouldn't be going back to the voters. The voters have already passed the city's ability to go out for the bond. So once we get the scope and the structure, the assessment and a good architect assessment of what the facility would cost, we can then, some of those expenditures are going to have to happen before we issue the bond that can be reimbursable. So the commission, we would likely come to the commission and ask for an increase in appropriations to move forward with, those initial design and architecture fees for the structure and get that. And then they will later be reimbursable from the bond. So after we get all that, then we would come to the commission to discuss the structure of the bond, the timing of the bond, and then when to levy the taxes in order to pay for the debt service of the bond to the commission.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. A resolution of intent to set fees, charged and collected by Planning Division of the Community Development Department. Repeal resolution number 11093 and to set a public hearing date. Director Brink, you have the floor.
Give me, Mayor. Technology. Okay. Will I get that up on the computer screen? As you recall on the monitor. If I remember back on May 1st, I did an initial presentation of proposed fees. So we're continuing with that discussion, and this starts the formal action process for us to move to an ROI and then final resolution adopting our proposed fees.
Knopfler? You ready? Can we go back to me?
Ready. I promise.
I'm gonna start with a shameless plug too once she gets this up. So you'll notice on moving forward, a lot of our material that we're gonna produce as a department is gonna have our land use plan logo and a QR code. You're gonna start seeing these around the public, either with sandwich boards at events or local businesses. The public will be able to scan this QR code and go to the public engagement part of the land use plan pages. Just shameless plug. Our current fees were adopted January of 1997, January 13th, as a matter of fact. So for effect, that is 27 years, 5 months, and 28 days ago. I was just about to turn 25. That's how long it's been since our fees have been adjusted. These are our current fees that we charge relative to some of our entitlement and land use applications. Again, very basic and minimal, way off target with what our sister cities are doing across the state. As you recall, during the budget presentation with this fee implementation, we had planned and are planning on a 3-year rollout of these fees, so it's not sticker shock on year one. After this year, for fiscal year 26 and 27, that will coincide with the start of the fiscal year if these proposed fees do get adopted. And as you recall too, the target was to at least recover half of our costs to provide these services. We're a general fund operation. We're not looking to recover all of our costs, because I think general public should have part of the burden and responsibilities to pay for what we do relative to processing these requests. But some burden does need to be put on the applicant for these services as well. Comparisons with some of our jurisdictions around us. We just targeted the big five, so to speak. Billings, Bozeman, Great Falls, actually 6. I can't count Kalispell, Missoula, and Whitefish. For the most part, we are way under what those sister cities are at relative to the comparables. And we do have some new fees, those shown in gold. But as a whole, across the state, at least western Montana, we are still below, even with our max fee, which I think would be a zone change if it's at the max. We're still way below what the comparable would be for the next city. And for graphics, I won't spend a lot of time, but I'll provide these as well. I did provide them in the Nova submittal, but I'll make sure to provide them before next Monday. Little graphics or maps showing exactly how we fit relative to our sister cities. I've got several maps. It's just, for instance, preliminary plat. This is based on a 100-lot review. If we implement fully our 100-lot division, we'll charge about $2,100. Whereas, for instance, City of Missoula, for the same subdivision, it's about $7,200. But as you noticed, other than Kalispell, we are way under what even our sister cities charge, just for reference, just for preliminary plat fees. But we've got graphics for how we compare with final plats, annexation fees, other than Kalispell, which tends to be an outlier for whatever reason. We are still generally way under what the other cities are. And if you compare the other 9 cities that we are in the implementation process with Senate Bill 382, it even gets more skewed. We're even way under if you add Puget Falls and Belgrade, to this list. So a question that came up during our budget discussion, I believe this question was from Commissioner Reed. Can we, this isn't a verbatim question, it's just a general idea of what the question was. Can we incorporate a discount or smaller CUP for like mom and pop operations or home-based businesses? As you know, staff is taking an approach to when we're reviewing our land use table and zoning to where possible and where warranted to eliminate CUP processes from the zoning discussion for a lot of businesses and make them, or uses, and make them as by right. So we're trying our best to, and this is relative to, I think, just CUP, but it could be anything. But for the CUP, we're trying to take those and limit those to really those uses that tend to be the most disruptive to the zoning district where they're permitted. And further, when we're reviewing our zoning and subdivision regulations relative to Senate Bill 382, we're going to take a bigger review of those and probably eliminate more of the CUPs from the land use table. So I say that being that we've tried to lessen the impact from an additional review process out of the requirements for a lot of businesses and uses. So we took a look, and there's really no mom and pop type operation that would be impacted by a fee increase from a CUP. And then we don't require CUPs for any of our home occupations. No zoning action really relative to home-based businesses and home occupations. So we think the fees that we have are fair, and given our approach relative to eliminating a lot of CUPs in the review process, I think we're on target with the fees that we're proposing. Do you have a question? And this is my question, and this is just for discussion. We haven't really fully vetted this question, but should we potentially look at a fee discount or a waiver process similar to how we do for affordable housing, a fee waiver out of the building code? Is that something that perhaps you would like to explore? We're open to do it. I'm not sure what that would look like. Currently for, the fee waiver for affordable housing, it's based on anything less than 6% AMI. You can qualify for it. Still have to make a request, and it's still an action item that you would review and take action on. Administratively, it will be a challenge because how do we manage that later? We'll have to stay on top of the project, make sure they meet the AMI requirement or any other conditions. What happens when they don't? Do we go back and charge them even though the use is up and running? Can we go back and charge somebody for violating that essentially be a resolution that you would adopt? But it also is an opportunity, and we see that as such by just lessening the burden on whatever it could be use-wise that would ask for that waiver. So just a thought. And this will impact the general fund. We are a general fund organization where it's not a special fund, but this impacts everybody. And then there's also other costs and fees that our part is minimal compared to other fees that are assessed. Either be building permit, either be water and sewer taps, street improvements, sidewalk improvements. This is just one small piece of the overall fee impact. So there's that to consider too. We're open to it. We can continue to have that discussion and review that concept if that's something you guys want to do.
Director Brink. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Director Brink, thank you for this. I appreciate the willingness to have this opportunity. If it's going to be a challenge, are you looking to hire any additional staff to handle the workload?
Mayor, Commissioner Shurtleff, no, that's not the point of these fee increases. We're not hoping and asking, but from a burden standpoint, no, it's just administratively and regulatorily, how do we impose a fee that should have been paid, but they got a waiver for, if in fact 5 years later we find out that they've now not met the requirement? Can we go back and retroactively charge them again? And what would that look like if the fee schedule changed? Do we charge them the new fee, or do we charge them based on what the fee was? It's just a lot of administrative issues if we start going down this fee waiver road. We're willing to do it, we're willing to review it, but I would not anticipate from an administrative standpoint, it requires any additional staff. No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Director Brink. Going back to the slide previously, I appreciate your point here. I think we recently had an example that jumps to mind where I believe it was the synagogue had a CUP. So I think I would like to explore the options of fee waivers for those cases that are unusual. I appreciate the administrative burden as well. I know that in some places they have something like it has to meet the use requirements for a period of X number of years, and after that you do what you want. If it becomes unduly burdensome to design a fee waiver process, okay, but I for one would like to see what options are out there, because imagining a case like the synagogue coming forward, which isn't a mom and pop business per se, but that fee would be extraordinarily high for them for the need they have.
Danielson?
Mayor, I found that Mayor, to someone address the question. So, you can always, but instead of adapting the fee schedule, you can also add language in there that, you know, if certain circumstances are met, criteria met, then they have the opportunity to come to the commission to ask for a fee waiver. And I think that, you know, and then you can work out administratively how to handle that. But I think that might meet your request.
Yes, and thank you, Director Davis. If that is what I meant, I just didn't articulate it well. Rather than a different fee, having a fee waiver option would address that scenario. So that would be great. Thank you.
And Mayor and Commission, just for comparison. So currently for that project, they paid a zone change fee of $410, conditional use permit of $435. So $845. If under the, this is where I do recognize that it could be a burden to some use, especially something, you know, that is meeting a community like that, and it does impact them. It would be almost $3,500 under the new fee schedule. But we will absolutely keep reviewing that concept.
Mr. Mayor, I would be supportive of exploring what the fee waivers could look like for low-income housing projects. I think one of the things, I mean, we have very few tools that we can utilize to incentivize building housing for low-income families. You know, I'd like to see the math of what the impact is to the general fund, but I think that it is a good way for us to help incentivize that kind of development.
We'll Mayor and Commission, we'll continue to look at that concept. I'm not sure if I'll have anything ready for Monday, but definitely when it gets to August the 12th, when it comes for you for the public hearing piece for the final adoption of the final resolution, we'll definitely have something in draft form for you to consider for that meeting. We'll target Monday, but I'm not sure if I'll be ready for that yet. So public engagement, this will come up, I'm sure. How have we identified and notified the public of these proposed increases? We haven't really. We've not hidden it. We've just not advertised it because we wanted to get your appetite for this proposal before we did a full-on public engagement piece. However, since May 1st, when I first presented this to you during a budget presentation, it has been on the department website. All out there for everybody to see, explanation about why we're looking at the fee increase proposal. We've put on site, the data and the analysis piece that we've provided. I'm not sure, I can't remember if I put it in the packet for tonight. I think it's in the packet for Monday. Where we did the analysis of all the dozen or so fees and how we came up to the proposal. That's been out there for the public, as well as the proposed fee table is on there as well. We've had nobody call or question our proposals, but after tonight, if it's your desire to move forward, and definitely prior to the public hearing, we'll hit all of our social media tools. We're going to put it on our civic access site, which is our permitted site, which is live, by the way. We'll put it on there. Of course, we'll make a bigger presence on our webpage. We'll hope that the media will contact us and ask us questions about it. And then all those tools that we've outlined in our new public participation plan to inform the public and engage them, we'll utilize those tools too. So we're going to be very transparent as we move through this process. We've not been not transparent, but we wanted to get a gauge of your appetite for using this. We're really good at following public wishes. A little long-winded about that, but any questions?
That's the question. Do we have any public comments on this topic? Madam Clerk, any online?
Mr. Mayor, I have a public comment online.
Okay, thank you. Transportation Systems, Capital Traffic Plan, Director Canopy, and all security. I am not. You have to the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll just grab our presentation here. Mayor, Commissioners, this plan, city and city staff have been working with the Capitol Complex to try to formulate up a new traffic flow scenario at the Capitol for, I don't know how many years now. It's been on the plate and working with it. I'll have Steve Diamante here give some background of the need for this and kind of the genesis, and then we'll talk about the individual details of the plan moving forward.
Thanks, Dave. Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, good afternoon. Steve Diamante, I'm the General Services Administrator to the Capitol, and I think we've probably been talking about this plan for 7 or 8 years now. The whole purpose of this plan is to really enhance public safety around the Capitol Complex, increase accessibility for the public, make it a more usable space for the neighbors. And the added benefit to it is also assist with some parking issues in that area. And I think one of the things that makes our Capitol Complex unique compared to most other state capitals is that we are situated in a residential neighborhood. So we're very sensitive to the needs of the residents as well as the needs of people who just want to get to the Capitol, whether it's for administrative functions at state agencies, whether it's legislative and public functions, or whether it's just literally the neighbors and tourists who want to come to the Capitol and use that property. So we developed a plan, happy to go into any details with you, but we really have taken a look at this from the lens of public safety and accessibility.
Mayor and Commission, just a real quick general overview. The proposed plan is to convert 6th Avenue to a one-way eastbound with angled parking and a bike lane, and then Robert Street would stay the same as two-way traffic, and then Lockheed there would turn into one-way traffic westbound with, again, angled parking and a bike lane. There's a little different configuration there before the horseshoe of the Capitol. Two-way traffic would be allowed, but it would be signed to be discouraged. And that was to accommodate emergency services so that when they were responding to the Capitol, they weren't going against traffic flow if that was a purely one-way roadway there.
So, there's a lot of different configurations that could have been looked at, but after reviewing this over the years and working with emergency services, this is what we came up with to meet everyone's needs. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Geez, all the hands going up already. Yeah, in trouble. Commissioner? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we've received public comment about switching the eastbound, westbound configuration so that Lockheed would be eastbound and 6 would be westbound in order to better manage the flow of people from the Historical Society to our downtown. I think that is an overwhelming preference that I've heard from people, and I'm wondering if that is an easy flip or if there's anything we should know about that.
I'm actually happy to take that from my standpoint. And Mr. Mayor, and my background is public safety. I was a state trooper for 23 years, and I worked up here in my present role and in public safety role. I would say that one of the advantages to this particular design, having Lockheed go westbound and 6 going eastbound, is based on the intersections right now. The Lockheed intersection is so close to the Broadway intersection that we really want to discourage people from trying to take a left or even right onto Lockheed from Montana, because it's too close to Broadway and it's such a short distance. It actually creates traffic hazards. We actually had a pedestrian hit up there a couple of years ago. So ideally, this is a really good traffic flow. And the engineers have looked at it, have agreed that this probably makes the most sense from a public safety standpoint.
Mr. Mayor, if I might just a quick follow. I do have some significant concerns about basically encouraging people to go to the Historical Society and keep going away from our downtown. So I'd love to see what we can do to accommodate public safety needs. And I mean, I live right there. I'm on that street all the time, and I get the left turn thing. But I'm wondering if there are some mitigating factors or measures we could take to enhance public safety while still, what's what I'm looking for, enhancing that corridor from the Historical Society straight to our downtown.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, that we're happy to take a look at something that's interesting is that we heard the actual opposite. As a matter of fact, I think it was the Historic Society thought that it was really a great idea that we'd be encouraging people to come from downtown directly to the new entrance of the Historical Society as well. So we've kind of heard both, that 6th Avenue is that corridor.
Okay.
Just to echo a little bit of what Commissioner Reed had to say. We've heard from downtown businesses, they'd like to see almost status quo between the Historical Society and downtown. I think there's an opportunity to work together with the Historical Society with 150,000 attendees going to the new museum to downtown and vice versa. I think there's some plans in place for tour buses and tour trains. But I'd heard at one point we had a meeting with SMA Architects and Dow regarding Montana Avenue, creating a diet there, possibly doing some. Is that still in consideration?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, sure what that is. So I think final plan is now, if there's a draft, there's a road diet that MDT and it would narrow Montana Avenue, I believe, from 11th to Broadway to 2 lanes, and then with a dedicated bike lane, I believe.
Yes, as Mayor and Commissioner, if I could add on to that, MDT's preference is to put signals at Broadway and 6th, and our preference is to try to keep traffic flowing, not only vehicular, but bicycle traffic and pedestrian by putting in the roundabouts there to better manage that flow. And like Mr. Beyonce has said, it's still in draft form. They haven't come back with what their final decision is on that, but we are in support of the road diet there. Basically from 4 lanes to 2 lanes there, and then haven't quite seen what their plan is, but our hope would be to add some green space there, taking up that instead of having some curbside sidewalk with small boulevards, we would enhance that boulevard and make it even wider and make it a real aesthetically pleasing corridor to lead to the Capitol and other areas of Helena.
Do we have any public comments on this topic? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Ann Houserath. I ride my bicycle there a lot. I go to St. Pete's, I go to my doctor's, I go to a lot of Lockheed Park, and I'm very concerned actually from a bicyclist point of view about the safety of angled parking. It can be done right, but and I can't tell from this diagram, the only safe way that I can see having a bike lane would be to have it between the curb and the cars. Because if you have the bike lane between the roadway and the angled parking, they're going to be one way or another backing into a bicycle lane. And I think this is going to make it much more dangerous. So I encourage you to, before you make a final decision on this, to put up sandwich boards, to have a way of engaging the people who use this on a regular basis. Because I think without careful attention to angled parking, the public safety issue for bicyclists could make this much worse. I like the idea of the road diet because on Montana, but I think they need to be linked. Because again, as a bicyclist, if I have to go westbound on Lockheed, then how do I get to a crossing? Because the Broadway crossing is too dangerous for the young, the old, and the timid. And so we need to go to 6th. And that will mean I don't ride on Montana without a protected bike lane. So that means I'll be riding on the sidewalk. And so will a lot of other bicyclists. So I think it's important to have more public engagement from the people who actually use this. Because I'm very concerned about the angled parking and where the bike lane goes. Thank you.
Do you have any others? Yes, ma'am.
Callie Asham with the Helena Area Chamber of Commerce and Visit Helena. We are, I thank you guys for allowing me to put in public comment, but we are proponents of leaving 6th, going westbound. Part of the money that we used this year from the CVB actually was for a program called Placer AI. And unfortunately, I didn't have the report back when I submitted my public comment, but when we look at routes, and we went back to 2019 to look at the routes that people took most often into town to the Historical Society and then out of the Historical Society. So going into the Historical Society, 43% of folks use the Prospect exit and then come up Roberts to the Historical Society. When we look at visitor patterns, we assume that most visitors who are coming for the museum are going to go to the museum first and then take in additional Helena attractions. And so leaving, they would also often, 29% of folks would leave via Roberts and then leave town via the 11th interchange. Going to the museum on 6th was just 8% from downtown, but leaving went up 5% to 13%. So I think it shows that if people are going to stay and we've committed as a group to making sure that once we've captured these, anywhere from 75 to 150,000 visitors, our goal is to keep them in Helena and to generate room nights for our hotels and also to generate income and economic development for our other business partners. So I think that by using that, I think that, we can show that maybe westbound on 6 would be, statistically probably the best way to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to share those reports with you guys. Yeah.
You have any others?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Megan Helton with the Business Improvement District downtown. We would also advocate for keeping 6th Avenue westbound, but I would like to understand if it did change into an eastbound lane, what the proposed traffic flow would be for visitors to come downtown. We've spent a lot of time trying to develop 6th Avenue as a corridor and be intentional in driving people downtown. So with that in light, I guess what would be the plan from transportation to help support those actions?
Thank you.
So I guess the question I have is what are the benefits of creating a one-way traffic around instead of just leaving 6th two-way?
Mayor and Commissioners, the circulation around the Capitol, especially during legislative sessions, you have a ton of folks just driving around looking for parking spaces. Having the circular flow around the Capitol would have that safer interaction between pedestrians and cars by only having the one-way traffic in front and in back of the Capitol, and that's the primary goal of this, is the increased safety for the use. I think the other reason that we're looking at this as now, this is a stepping stone for the Capitol. They have a master plan that looks at the Capitol campus, and this is kind of a stepping stone moving towards that and starting to get that feel of a capital campus so that they can start, integrating, more pedestrian facilities to lead to, the museum and other things. So I just think that this, like we said, we've been working on this for a number of years. And I think the plan overall to create this flow is going to be better for the experience up there. And it's definitely going to increase the safety for the visitors to our community.
Mr. Mayor. I'd love to actually just add on to your question. Commissioner, the other thing with the angle parking is it's a naturally traffic calming device. And so it naturally creates that campus feel and slows traffic down. But I think the other thing that's important is that there was a perception that this is about increasing parking, and it will increase parking, but we can't quantify that because the numbers that the engineers looked at were over session. They came up and looked at an average day to see when cars were absolutely packed in bumper to bumper, which is not an efficient parking means, because then we have all kinds of hit and runs when people are hitting each other. And then if you look at it on an average day to day, people leave anywhere from 12 to 20 feet of space. So they leave just enough to get a car in, but not enough to back into. And so it's so inefficient that the increase in efficiency, we can't quantify it, but it's not 5 or 10 extra spaces like the engineer comes up with. It's probably closer to like 30% more efficiency, because every single spot is a designated, even on the parallel spaces, they're all marked. It just creates a much more organized feel that naturally slows people down and makes it safe for pedestrians to cross.
So I guess my second question is, would there be opposition from anyone to, instead of going clockwise, go counterclockwise to accommodate moving people into downtown?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, from my standpoint, we're happy to have the engineers look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What was the public engagement process in coming up with this configuration, if any?
So we are, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, starting to bring this to you, see what we need to do with our next steps, because we don't want to take it anywhere if it's not going to go anywhere. So this is our first step.
Dr. Kanapke. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Andrea Opitz, Director with Visit Helena, the Helena Tourism Business Improvement District. I would just echo what Callie and Megan said. I'm curious what the timeline is. As Callie mentioned, they have data collection. We also are purchasing destination management software that works on visitor movement and visitor spending and different tracking patterns. So would it be possible to wait? Is this considered being done before the museum opens or after? So that's one question. The second question would be, in terms of recommendations, if this plan stands as is, what would be the recommended route to disperse visitors to downtown and other areas of?
Ms. Opitz, you're giving comments, you're not giving questions.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then
Okay.
So Mr. Mayor, maybe some feedback, since this is the first public meeting, it's first time it's come to all of us and the rest. So some of the things that I would be interested in seeing moving forward is, one, getting kind of all the parties in terms of the organizations that are going to be doing a lot of the work in organizing and maximizing tourists visiting Helena. So the museum for sure, you all at General Services, BID, Chamber, Visit Helena, TVID, those folks, transportation, obviously. But I think that maybe getting an opportunity for like the stakeholders to be there would be a really good first step. I would be thrilled if parking did become a little bit more organized during the session, because it is free for all, especially like we've gotten 3 feet of snow the night before and, you know, people are running into a committee hearing and there's already mayhem up there. So, I totally agree that we need to have some improved safety in the area. But I do want to make sure that we're thinking about, you know, what is the long term? How do we facilitate a positive long-term impact? Not just for public safety, but for maximizing the impact of the museum on the rest of the community.
I just want to say that your questions can be answered if you forward them over to the Dr. Kanopke and or the security director. And like they said, this is the first step. We are just hearing about this. So there will be times for public input, there'll be times for all of those questions to be answered. Do we have any other public comments? Madam Clerk, do we have any online?
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment online.
Dr. Kanopke, thank you, Doc. Thank you, sir. Well, it's still on.
I am until I can find them out on here, Mayor. Second. Hey, Mayor and Commissioners, this is kind of a work session that was this bid award for bed and turn lanes was brought to you in a previous city commission meeting, and we were asked to explore some different alternatives to the curb and gutter that was proposed with the bidding. I did want to preface this that it was tabled, but you know, if we make any dramatic changes to the scope of the project itself, it'll have to come back to the commission for basically rejection of the bids, because the bid was the bid documents, and if we make any major changes, then that doesn't entitle the other bidders to have, you know, weighed in on it. So, but moving forward. Just to give you a quick overview, the functional classification of Bend is actually a minor arterial. The annual average daily traffic is approximately 6,500 vehicles per day. The 2014 long-range transportation plan had that projected out to almost 12,000 vehicles per day in 2035. Benton is an urban route, thus any change in the proposed projects will have to be reviewed by MDT again. So this being an urban route, MDT has some say in what improvements get made. They were excited to see this project when we first proposed it to them because of the safety issues of the turning movements. Currently, Elmwood, which is the northernmost street that comes out onto Benton, has an existing asphalt width of about 30 feet, has two 12-foot lanes, and the current truncated domes distance is about 34 feet. Meadow Drive, which is the main concern of this of the project, has an asphalt width of about 30.5 feet, again, two 12-foot lanes, and the distance between the truncated domes is 43 feet 5 inches, or 43.5 feet. Oakwood, which is the southernmost street, has 31 feet of asphalt and about 41 feet between the truncated domes at this time. So when we looked at this, we looked at potential our alternatives, and proposed MDT of striping 10-foot lanes here. So we would be able to keep all 3 lanes, even if we put in a turn lane within the existing asphalt footprint. So that would be a 10-foot travel lanes and a 10-foot turn lane. The Elmwood, you know, for the ultimate look at this, We'd verify the ADA compliance of the existing ramps, and if they needed to be improved, we would improve those with a potential project. There is only ramps right now at the northern piece of the intersection, and that was done by the Benton Trail project. We would have discussions with MDT about construction of that other leg, just so that both legs of that, or all three legs of that three-way intersection would have ADA ramps. And then we'd coordinate with MDT to replace the overhead flashing yellow with a pedestrian actuated rectangular rapid flash beacon like you're seeing around town. We think that those are more effective. Again, as you've heard me say over and over again, flashing yellow lights get to be kind of white noise and people start ignoring them. And that crossing right there is used by quite a number of school-age children going into Sunhaven or coming out during school time. Meadow Drive, install a 10-foot turn lane due to the unsafe passing of turning vehicles. Reconstruct one of the northern ramps. It has a tendency to hold some water, which is an unsafe condition for pedestrians. So we would reconstruct that ramp. And then obviously construction of the southern ramps. Again, we only have ramps on the one side, east and west. The crossing distance, not much, but it would be reduced by about 4 feet. So one step, 1.5 steps by your average person. And then coordinate with MDT to install a pedestrian actuated beacon there, so that we would have the rectangle rapid flash beacon down by the at Elmwood that is used quite heavily, and then here at Meadow. Oakwood Lane, we'd install a 10-foot turn lane there due to a queuing to the tracks. When that starts backing up, the queuing distance starts getting up towards the tracks, creating an unsafe condition there. Again, verify the existing compliance on the existing ramps. Construction of that other leg of ramps, just like the other ones. Again, this one would be crossing distance would be reduced by about 3 feet. And then no rectangular rapid flash beacon is planted at this location because of the close proximity with the crossing of the railroad tracks. We already have advanced warning for the trail so that the cars don't back up when that beacon is activated at the trail crossing. So having a flashing light there and a flashing light within about 70 feet of that, I think would be confusing to motorists. This is just kind of a very conceptual look at what we could do with the current approved approach by MDT. Obviously, the city's preference, if it was up to us, would be to put the southern crosswalk there as well, which would then this rectangular rapid flash beacon on the east side there would move south to that crosswalk, and then you'd have buttons on all 4 corners, so that whole crossing would be pedestrian actuated and a protected crossing for pedestrians. Along with that, we would put in curb and gutter to the extent of, if we were to get a turn lane approved, the extent of the tapers, we would put curb and gutter in there just to basically define that corridor very deliberately, and then the curb and gutter along the east side there to protect those pedestrians from those cars that now are overtaking turning vehicles. So if we were to do everything that I just discussed about talking about all the crosswalks, the curb and gutter, the turn lanes, you would be looking at potentially $420,000, roughly $421,000. If we were to do some minor upgrades, which would, excuse me, be just a new rectangular rapid flash beacon, the turn lane at Meadow Drive with the RFB, and then Oakwood with the 3 ADA ramps and the 2 crossings, we'd be looking at somewhere in the realm of $234,000. Both of these don't have design costs included in them, because depending on what improvements we'd be making would kind of impact, like this last one, the Elmwood installation of the new RFB, we can do that under an existing contract that we have with a local contractor. The ADA ramps at Oakwood, again, we have an existing contract with a contractor here in town that we could do those on our own. So really, in that case, the only potential design would be the at Meadow Drive there. These are just two. I'm not recommending, there's a bunch of possibilities that you can mix and match in here. So I'd be happy to answer questions.
Yes, Mayor, quick question, Director Kanopke. What are the qualifications of the engineer that designed this?
They're a Montana registered PE. They're on our both Public Works and Transportation's pre-approved engineers. We do have a memo from Transportation Solutions, which does transportation planning that's their kind of their niche, and that's all they do. And their recommendations was to provide traffic calming measures to reduce travel speeds at Benton. Because right now, the way the speed is set is right just south of Meadow. The speed changes from 35 to 25. So it would be our intentions to work with MDT to maybe introduce some traffic calming before Meadow to calm that entire corridor leading up to the railroad tracks. The other recommendation from that engineer was to construct curb and gutter on the east side of Benton to prohibit the illegal overtaking of vehicles, and then to construct a left turn lane northbound Benton to separate the left turn and through vehicle movements, and to reduce the probability of rear-end crashes there. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mayor, just one other comment, commissioners. When this went in front of the commission, I think there were 4 commissioners present. What we'd like to do, because we either need to award it in some fashion or deny it. And if it's denied, then we're still going to want to proceed with the design of the future project. So our intent is to take any feedback that you have today, bring it back to the commission for a final decision when the full commission is sitting, which probably will be July 29th. That's the goal of this item today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. Is it already on the agenda for Monday?
Is it?
It's a placeholder.
Yeah.
Depending on the outcome of this meeting.
It is in the packet for Monday. But my original question / comment, hearing the alternatives and listening to the discussion about Benton and it's an urban road and MDT, to me, this sounds like an MPO project that's much bigger. It seems like an excellent candidate for a larger conversation about, the traffic calming before the stop signs. It feels like a big project, and this feels a bit, I'm not an engineer, but it feels like we're picking away little pieces. I am mindful of the pedestrian concerns. Someone was hit there. That is serious. So my preference would be not to award this bid and maybe to do the rapid flashing beacons to address the immediate pedestrian safety concerns while this project gets designed, fully and holistically addressing all the larger issues. I am also mindful that the bid came in, I think it was 12% over the estimate. It seems extraordinarily expensive for what it is. It doesn't seem like it's addressing the real big picture priorities to me. So that would be my preference. Put in a rapid flashing beacon and some basic, simple, we already have contract things to address immediate concerns and look at the project more holistically later. Thanks.
Mayor, we did put the agenda out, probably a little aggressive in getting it out earlier. I think because I understand that there won't be a full commission sitting on the 15th.
Right.
So I think my recommendation to the commission would be let's table it until the 29th.
But in the meantime, inputs can be brought forth.
Yeah. And I've got one other question, please. Relative to your experience in designing the complete street resolution, Was that an intent to include every street, including residential throughout the city, or was it primarily focused on arterials and collectors?
I went back and looked through the resolution and also discussed with Director Leland, who was here at the time. And the intent was to address it at collectors and arterials, that locals roads typically had speeds low enough that and volumes low enough that the traffic calming measures of the complete streets weren't as a priority as some of these collectors and arterials.
I think that's an important context, and it's perhaps an activity in the future, Mayor and Commissioners, where we provide more clear intent. Because that was the intent when the commission passed the resolution, and somehow it's getting away from the original intent to become all inclusive on every street, regardless of whether it's an arterial, a collector, or every single residential street throughout the city.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Marion. That is helpful context. So just to make sure I'm clear, we could get the turn lane onto Meadow within the existing 30 feet right now.
Mayor Commissioners, yes.
Okay. I'm really excited. I would love to get the rapid flashing beacons at all those intersections with the ADA ramps. I was at leaving Bill Roberts on Sunday, and we were taking a left to go back home, and a train, we couldn't turn left yet because it was blocked because the train was there. Once the train started coming, everyone is speeding down, and there were 3 cars in a row that went speeding into the ditch around the traffic that was turning into Meadow and kept going. And I just thought, oh my God, while kids are riding their bikes along the bed path, and this is a very busy area at all times of the year, but like particularly in summer, when kids are like one and adults. I mean, lots of people are using all the time, but I think if we can do this within the 30 feet, we're not expanding the road, and accommodate that traffic turning into Sun Haven, because it is terrifying when people are literally going 30 miles an hour into the ditch around cars trying to take a left-hand turn with the train traffic. And so, I mean, if we can get the rapid flashing beacons in at all those intersections, I would be fully supportive. And I would really like to find a solution. It appears, as you said, that we can keep it at the 30 feet and prevent folks from driving into the ditch around the turning traffic.
Go ahead, Director.
Mayor and Commission, I just want to caveat that we would have to get the approval of the 10-foot lanes by MDT. But that's what we would like to do to prevent additional costs and to implement the safety mitigation measures.
Yes.
Just to let you know, when this was originally presented on the 17th, I was comfortable with awarding the bid. I know we heard a fair bit of feedback from the non-motorized community, but I think this provides a good balance between vehicular safety and pedestrian safety, and those are both important. So if there are, some minor changes that could be done within the context of awarding that bid, I'm fine with that. But I guess I'm personally in favor of moving forward with it. That's what I'm at.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Director Knopke, same street, different topic. Has the thought of lowering the speed limit on Benton Avenue been a part of this discussion at all?
Mayor and Commissioners, we requested a few years ago for them to do a speed study for just that reason. There was, and it actually came back that Benton should be 35 because of the classification of the roadway. And we had to, as a city, I don't want to say fight, but we had to advocate for the 25 because of the entrance of Bill Roberts, the proximity of the Centennial Trail and the railroad tracks. So that's why you see it 35 and then turns to 25. And then, you know, it was a pretty easy argument to make in front of Carroll College because of the crossing traffic there to keep that. But, you know, it doesn't look like it. And apparently back in 1937, it was just a dirt road.
Some parts of it still are dirt.
Yeah, and there's, you know, there's these 6 little trees out there. I'm not sure what those are all about, but you know, it's one of our major arterial streets. And as Helena grows and as the valley grows, our connections, you know, have to accommodate multimodal traffic.
So Mayor, just to be clear, and I'm gonna recommend on Monday night that we table this until the 29th so that the full commission can make a decision.
Do we have any public comments on this topic? Madam Clerk, anyone online?
Mr. Mayor, I have Greg Worth with his hand raised.
To recognize him, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners. Greg Worth. I've given you prior comments on Benton Avenue. Was there at the last City Commission meeting. I'd just like to point out, appreciate the opportunities to look at different options here. I do think this as noted, this is an arterial in the city. It takes more thought into this, and I ask that we, you know, don't rush into any conclusions right now. I think this, as we have an MPO now, and moving into an LRTP update, it's an opportunity to take a better dive into what this street needs to be to accommodate pedestrians. I will also point out, you know, the City Commission did just adopt a strategic plan. You know, the core values are accessibility, sustainability, community engagement, and service, and just be mindful of whatever solutions we arrive at are consistent with the core values in the strategic plan. You know, the goals are for transportation related are an LRTP update through the MPO. And then the other goals are neighborhood vitality and then sidewalk. You know, so I ask that our options, proposals for Benton Avenue be considerate of those strategic goals. In addition, I know there's been talk about the resolution for AARP age-friendly communities. And how the proposed improvements to Benton Avenue are aligned with the resolution for age friendliness. So with that, I do think we ask that we deny the bid awards for this for further consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any others, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I have no other public comment on mine.
Okay, thanks. Partner reports. Really not on my agenda.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Commissioners are here today to give a brief update of the RFP for the fire tower project. In May of 2023, the City of Helena put out the RFP to bid for the restoration of the fire tower. In December of 2023, contractor was awarded the bid. We worked with the contractor who was awarded the bid with the support of the city attorney's office over a series of weeks, which turned into months, which turned into the fact that we were unable to come to terms. At this time, the scope of the work has been redefined. And at this time, the RFP is ready to go back out to bid. I'm here today and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the commissioners? Do we have any public comments on this topic? Madam Clerk, any online?
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment on mine.
Thank you, sir. Review recycling bin removal transition plan, Director Leland, you have the floor.
Mayor and Commission, just give you an update that decision was made to relocate or remove the recycling bins on McHugh Avenue. And as a transition plan, instead of just to go out there and yank them all out the next day without any notice and public information, it's going to cause some heartache with people out there. So the transition plan is to give them 30 days. Whoever does use that drop-off location, give them 30 days. We will put a sign out. We have one in the packet of where it is, just to give other locations of where we're going to be with the libation station out at the fairgrounds, and they can choose what best works for them. They can go to the transfer station, but then they have to use their pass to be able to get in. So we will be getting the sign up as soon as possible if we get consensus here today, and then be able to give information that they can either call a transfer station or look up the QR code on the website to get more information on that. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, question.
Mr. Mayor, just comment. Yeah. On this sort of move, I think, obviously it's a benefit to a lot of people for recycling, but it comes at the expense of the neighborhood. And so I appreciate the flexibility in adjusting this. Appreciate the time for this.
I support the transition plan you have in place. Any other comments from the? And to have discussion, follow up, Clerk Claiborne and on Director Kanopki, you have to do it.
Yeah. City manager.
Mayor, this discussion took place at the last commission meeting. It was not a full commission. I've been asked by some commissioners to get it back on the agenda for a final decision. It won't be on the 15th because we won't have a full commission. So my intent is to make sure that it has time on the 29th. And that's just at this time. If there are any questions, or
comments or questions from the commission? Any public comments on this topic?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a couple hands raised online. First up is Greg Worth.
Go ahead.
Good evening again, Mayor Collins, Commissioners. Greg Worth, I am the current chair of MTAC, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity to serve on MTAC. I've enjoyed my time on MTAC. Speaking on behalf of the members of MTAC, we would certainly like to continue our role as a non-motorized travel advisory council to the commission. So we would ask that you would deny the dissolving of MTAC. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any other?
Mr. Mayor, next hand raised is Lucas Wallace.
You have the floor, Mr. Wallace.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, thank you as well for the opportunity to serve on an MTAC. I do think that there is a role for a bike walk committee or something like an MTAC within the city of Helena, although I do also support the idea of having a bike walk committee or something similar to a non-motorized transportation committee within the MPO. For my own part, as long as the city continues to want us to serve, I'm happy to do so. Obviously, won't insist if the city no longer wants us to. And I also believe there is enough interest that we could easily fill the vacant seats and get a full quorum if the city wants this commission to continue. So thank you for the opportunity and best wishes on it.
Thank you, sir. Do you have any others?
Mr. Mayor, I have no other public comment online.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I listened to the discussion at the commission meeting, and there seemed to be some confusion, I think, about being able to access funds through the MPO And I believe that that is totally independent from the existence of a committee like the MTAC. So I just wanted to clarify that whether or not the MTAC exists or doesn't exist, the MPO will be able to access funds. So these are, I think those issues should be separated. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Did you say any other?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, good question for the penalty. I know I'm under the impression that you maybe were doing some research about some other communities with implemented subcommittees, and I wondered if you might be able to, if you can't look right now, that's fine. In fact, work isn't done yet, but if so, I'd be interested to hear it.
Mayor and Commissioners, really briefly, Cheyenne MPO, they were one of the sponsors of a Safe Routes to School plan, which had members of the city, the county, school district, planning folks, and everything like that. The Billings also had did a Safe Routes to School through the MPO, which focused on local schools and those safe routes. Missoula has an active Missoula 2045. Their pedestrian facilities master plan works with the city and the county through their NPO to produce these types of plans. They have a bike facilities master plan produced through the MPO in Missoula as well. The other that plan looks at the LRTP, goes down through Missoula's active transportation plan, which then spreads out through Missoula's master sidewalk plan, bike facilities master plan, and then Parks and Rec. So it's all inclusive of not just a regional look at things, but they get down into the details of the communities itself. And then I'd be remiss to not to mention Bike Walk Montana has a strong presence. They used to have a chapter, Bike Walk Helena, here in the city, and part of their who they are is, you know, advocate citizens. They look at land use conservatories, school education, service, foundation. So there are a number of groups that do this work through the MPO or in conjunction with them. So thank you.
That's the resolution adopting policies pertaining to electronic meeting.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, this computer over here is working too hard apparently. I'm going to pull it up over here. Okay. Sorry, you have it once.
Good job.
Appreciate your support, sir. So we're in a public meeting right now and we're hosting at least part of it online. I think at peak participation, we had about 28 people online, public and staff. We've been using electronic meetings as a means to do public outreach since 2019, very end of 2019. And as everyone became rapidly familiar in 2020 during COVID, it became a necessary evil in some instances with how we do our business. What we haven't had prior to that is a written policy associated with that. I do want to preface the conversation today with this is really your first glance and opportunity to really discuss the work product that's in the packet for tonight, the resolution. It is ridiculously comprehensive. I fully admit that, and probably overly complicated in many ways. But it's an effort to provide you with a wealth of options that other communities are doing. And it wasn't just across the state of Montana. I did have one of you ask me what other communities in the state are doing currently regarding electronic meetings. And I will say it really depends, and it's shifting even right now because of the legislation, which we'll go into here briefly, that was passed in the last legislative session that requires class 1 and 2 cities to record their meetings in audio and video format. And so I think for a lot of the communities right now, big and small, they're trying to figure it out. So what I did do is look at some of the larger communities, and then went outside of the state borders and looked at other communities about our size across the nation. I mentioned to one commissioner that Utah seemed to be above, ahead of the curve on a lot of this. But I did find a community in Colorado, North Glen, which was about our size, and they seem to have a pretty comprehensive policy regarding electronic meetings. So with that, I will move into the slides. So brief history, for some of you in the room that may be not immersed in all of this, MCA 214 in the last legislative session is the statute that was modified to require class 1 and 2 cities. And that essentially means those that are 10,000 or more residents to record their meetings in audio and video format. This city, as I said, has been playing around with electronic meetings since 2019. And we've been offering since 2020 all of the commission meetings admin and regular on Zoom. We also have been streaming meetings since 2020 live on social media. We started with Facebook Live and then transitioned to YouTube. The commission throughout these past few years has given staff additional direction, stating that they wanted to see all public meetings, not just those that are required in statute, the governing body, meaning you, to also offer online meetings. So that would include the boards and committees. And that staff requested permission to make the recording the official record for the meeting, which allows us to then do timestamp minutes. It's a huge time save for staff on many, many levels, especially for the boards and committees, if we're able to timestamp. The argument that was made once upon a time to this, some of you in the room right now, but a former makeup of the commission is, we're no longer having to then put words in your mouth by summarizing what was discussed. Someone can pull that record up and watch it in real time. So tonight, I'm just going to ask you to consider a few policy points that are in that resolution. One, we need to talk about hybrid options. That's what we're doing right now, meaning that there's an in-person component and then an electronic or online component. If you would like to say that there are exceptions to that rule, we need to discuss that. There may be instances where an all electronic meeting or a carve out for those makes sense, or where there's a requirement that the entire body be in person for any number of reasons. That we're going to ensure that we're complying with the online meeting with all public right to participate laws. And Montana, as you well know, has some of the most transparent sunshine laws in the state or in the country. And so we want to make sure we're covering our bases there. Whether or not this body would like to see any accountability for those that participate online. So whether you want to, I guess, offer any guidance to staff on policing how often someone's able to use both for all the public meetings, so for boards or committees and for yourself. Some communities opt to do that, some don't. Technological failure, that the city would then be able to respond in writing or assure the public that there are remedies should a technological failure. We witnessed quite a few just tonight even. They happen. It's just part of it. So assuring the public that we've thought that through and that we have remedies for technology failing us sometimes. And then establishing the policy officially for using the recording as the official record and then following the required statutes associated. So I'm just going to go through the asks in certain sections within that giant resolution that's in the packet for tonight. Sections 3 and 4, if you're looking in the document in your work product packet, is saying that there's a requirement for an in-person meeting, meaning that, as I said to one of you, I think the reasoning for some communities offering this as an option within their resolution is if a member of the public is expected to come to a live meeting and the only person sitting in that room is the clerk, they're not necessarily there to speak to the clerk sitting there running an electronic meeting. So for your consideration, whether or not you want to require at least 1, 2, 3, your choice, individuals from the governing body or the board or committee to be in person for that member of the public to speak directly to. Member participation requirements. So visibility, it's pretty common across all of the resolutions I looked at, and it's considered best practice from Robert's Rules and the Institute of Parliamentarians that individual participating in public meetings be visible and obviously be audible throughout the entire meeting. And that includes voting. It's not uncommon for folks online to just turn their camera off and disappear for a period during the discussion. For the public watching the meeting, it's difficult to know if that individual, especially from a governing body, is actually participating in the discussion. So whether or not you'd like to consider a requirement there. I did make a little caveat there, excessive use or misuse for non-compliance with any provisions within the resolution. This resolution isn't intended to cover those yet. We do have another resolution forthcoming that sort of sets the ground rules amongst commissioners and expectations, which would be perhaps where you discuss those options for non-compliance outcome. And then Section 11 allows the commission in particular, at the call of the presiding officer, in this case, the mayor, and this would be specifically a carve out for the commission, and with the consent of the commission, that the mayor may say that there's a reason that a meeting we should suspend some of the requirements before in order to allow for an all electronic meeting. Essentially what I'm offering in that provision is an opportunity for you all to supersede the provisions within the resolution, because we don't know. There could be any number of incidences that happen that I can't predict, and I want to make sure that we're not pinning your hands down with anything within the resolution. Section 12 is very specific to an event that we're all familiar with at this stage. There was a declaration of emergency that happened, and that's a very specific process. Associated with that, though, were several meetings that had to happen in order to do that declaration, and we weren't allowed to necessarily be in a room together. So that Section 12 does outline the process, and it's got some very specific guidelines within it that outline how you might go about calling a meeting by any means necessary, and that may be in an extreme scenario. Again, these are emergent matters of wildfire, for instance, that even by telephone you'd be able to meet. Section 13, this is something that I saw other communities put in there, that there are certain matters that are of such import that the requirement amongst the commission would be that everyone for a final decision, final action needs to be in chambers in person. And I gave a few examples within the resolution language, and that would include quasi-judicial, subdivision, fees or assessments being created, final budget adoption. Again, all of this is just for your consideration and to discuss amongst yourselves. These aren't necessarily staff's recommendations. And then Section 21, after going through the resolution with the city attorney, we discussed that as technology sometimes fails, and some of you were here for a very epic and public Zoom bomb that happened at the City of Helena. There may be a time when those individuals that are trying to participate in the public process with all of you, due to a technology failure or misuse by another member, their opportunity to be heard may be prevented. And so what we would put in this Section 21 is an extended public comment period, and indicate that there may be an opportunity for written public comment at the commission's call for those individuals that are unable to participate to proceed with public comment, and then we table the item. So next steps are really, I would like to take any feedback now, if you have any, if you need time to ruminate on any of this. My intention would be the earliest that you'd see this resolution back for any action would be the 29th, and that would be pushing it. I think I want to make sure that I'm taking in all of your feedback, going back to the city attorney, going to the local government center for what feels like the 20th time, and asking what their opinion would be and get you the best product possible. So at this time, I will show you a photo map, apparently. I'll take any questions. That's what that's supposed to say. Technology.
Thank you. I think that was a technology problem. Comments from the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Madam Clerk, for this. I appreciate the comprehensiveness. There's things I would not have thought about that now I have thought about. So it's good to see all the options. Speaking from personal experience, I do have a couple of concerns about some of the minimum requirements for attendance. I'm a single parent with a young child, and childcare is really expensive. So my ability to participate as a commissioner sometimes requires me to be home and not here. And again, personal experience, it's gotten better, but that's a real factor. And I'm a little concerned that we will limit people's ability to serve if we make it a physical presence requirement, or start to make it so that it becomes highly stressful to figure out how you're going to care for your child in order to be here. So I understand, if you have a room and someone comes for public comment, there's no one in it. I get that. But I'm also concerned about how it will impact people. That's my personal experience. There's other reasons people can't physically come. And I just want to be very, very careful that we don't eliminate a whole group of people from public service because of requirements that may not really be necessary for the democratic process. And I think looking at section 9, may not attend more than 50% unless the following reasons. I think that is an interesting list. I'm not sure if it covers, childcare needs or things like that. That may be a reality. That's the day-to-day reality versus military service, which is a different kind of day-to-day reality. So on that category, I am concerned about limiting the ability to participate online. I think the camera on requirement is really important. I would be careful on the wording because, again, as a parent of a small child, I don't know that everybody wants to see him during a meeting. And sometimes I just have to turn my camera off because there he is. But I do think we can word it so that you must be, during voting and other things, that cameras should be on. And the last one I wanted to comment on, can you go back to the prior slide? Member participation, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, non-emergent meetings entirely online. I think that's great. So, I'm sorry, can you go to the next one then? So final decisions cannot be made pertaining to specific actions. I think the exact example of the budget is a tricky one. We do have deadlines that can't move. And I know a lot of us have job requirements that sometimes have us not in Helena. So I'm a little worried about having a requirement that makes everybody physically must be present and also having a timeline that cannot be moved. So I would want to be careful that we don't box ourselves into a corner on things like budget and other things that we just can't move that item on the agenda to accommodate the schedules of commissioners. And otherwise, I don't have any comments.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission?
First, just want to thank the commission clerk for all of the work that went into this. I think sometimes she does not get all the credit she deserves in getting us to this place of, we truly were 5 steps ahead of the curve once COVID came, and it was because of her efforts to modernize the office. And I'm really glad that we're in a position now where we can start figuring out what the policies actually look like so that we're prepared for the future. One of the things that I'd like to, kind of talk a little bit about is that I think there was a clear improvement in collaboration and deliberation once we came back out of COVID, and the majority of the commission was in person a majority of the time. I think that you lose a lot, when we're not here. I want to see it always available for the public online. But I do think that we just have so much more engagement and are better able to serve the community when we can have hard conversations face to face, or easy conversations. It always appears to be a lot more collaborative when we have discussions. One of the things that I wanted to maybe throw out is I do get a little bit concerned in section 9 that if we leave the unless absences exceeding 50% are due to any of the following circumstances, which included military service, also included unforeseen employment obligations, any other matter of significance is determined by the presiding officer, which I think a lot could fall in that. One thing that makes me a little bit nervous is at 50%, I worry about putting us potentially in a position where we, maybe have individuals who run for office, get elected, and then decide to become snowbirds. And they might be voting residents in Helena, and they're here 51% of the time, but they're in Arizona 49% of the time. And there's nothing in here that would prevent them from being on Zoom for half the year. And that, I think at a commission level, is not necessarily the kind of engagement that our community would expect of its elected leaders. And so I just want us to be thinking about what are the things that could happen in the coming years to ensure that we have the most engaged and present commission that we can. I think been kind of a running joke about all of our meetings. Our agendas are very large, and it feels like our responsibilities are getting larger and larger and larger. And this is, I think probably every member of the commission, past and present, would attest that it is not an easy job. It's part-time, but it doesn't get paid like part-time. None of us quit our jobs part-time to do this because it wouldn't pay bills. But it also, we do have responsibilities that are significant and they're not decreasing. And so I just want to make sure that we remain a body that is engaged and present and not fall into, particular or potential situations where we have folks that are maybe gone half of the year.
So, Madam Clerk, if you could go back one slide, maybe. I think my iPad technologically failed and I can't access the resolution. So which was the section? I think it's 9. That's kind of the point of discussion here or what seems to be kind of rising to the top, essentially about an elected representative meeting by Zoom, which we've done from at the beginning of my tenure, for the most part. I guess personally, my preference would be in-person meetings, but that's reflective of my situation and how I see elected representatives, and may not. This is my opinion. So a question for Commissioner Reed: would you see section 9 as being not necessary?
Do you mean not having a minimum requirement section?
Yeah, just like, is it appropriate for it to be in this resolution or not?
My preference would be not to have a minimum requirement standard, because I think it can be very challenging for some people. I appreciate Commissioner Dean's point about, to me, the minimum requirement is stressful for someone who's in Helena but can't afford childcare and can't physically be in the building, but they're still in Helena. I realize that with the absence of some sort of requirement, you could have someone, commissions from Arizona. It's a different concern. So if we are able to address the issue of being an actual person who lives here without a minimum requirement to in-person meetings, that would be my preference.
Mayor, commissioners, and I'm not the city attorney here, but I recall that there are statutes that if you're gonna be out of town for over 2 weeks, it's an elected official, you have to have permission
from the commission.
by a majority of.
Right. So that's no burst of this out the window.
As long as there's 3 people that voted against it.
Mr. Mayor, so if I may follow up, so I guess as I was thinking about this, I'd go to, let's say, what you might call the extreme position of if someone were elected as a city commissioner and they just chose to meet by Zoom, would we collectively be saying that that's okay?
I guess to respond to that, Commissioner Logan, for me, yes, I would assume they have a reason or a circumstance that, you know, for them being in person, there's a prohibitive factor. I mean, to take the example, if there's someone who's immunocompromised and doesn't feel comfortable being in public places, if there's somebody who has, you know, anxiety about group spaces or things like that, there's any number of reasons a person may not feel comfortable, but that doesn't mean that they can't serve their community well. So I am on the side of really wanting to make sure people who want to serve and can serve well are able to do so without a requirement that may be unduly burdensome to them, whereas it's more of a matter of preference to others, if that makes sense.
You know, for me personally, I don't see minimum requirements as undue bottom, as cumbersome. When COVID was not around, we were meeting 100%. And in my opinion, there's no reason why, if you're having problems or you can't make a meeting, we know what we've done. Hey, Mayor, hey, team, I won't be able to make the meeting today. That's fine. But no minimum requirements. I'm not in favor of that, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it got brought up was that the fact that we're not full-time commissioners. And we each have different things going on in our lives, full-time jobs, retired, childcare, etc. But being flexible, I think is something that we should consider. And I have a feeling, maybe I'm assuming this incorrectly, but the 50%, is that, Madam Clerk, is that 50% numbers that come from the state legislature?
No.
Or is that
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Shirtliff, all of these items that are in here, the statute that I guess is the impetus for some of this 214 is pretty bare bones. These are just policy considerations for you all. Multiple communities I looked at had a minimum requirement for the number of meetings that a participant could be online per calendar year. Honestly, 50%, I just picked it as a discussion point for you all.
And is, Mr. Mayor, as someone who works on the road occasionally, I do appreciate that having a hybrid option. It's very nice to have. I know we had an issue 2 years ago. It was in Thompson Falls. I had to give nonverbal cues on how I was going to vote on things, and that was a bandwidth issue. And I appreciate this. I think, you know, as elected officials, we do have, there's an expectation for us to be here, but also too, there are some considerations, like I completely agree with Commissioner Reed, you know, childcare, or if there's health concerns, etc. But that's just my 2 cents on this. I do appreciate the work you've put into this today.
If I might, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and that the intent, if the language isn't clear, I can certainly work on that with the city attorney, but the intent is that anything exceeding 50%, those subsections 1 through 7 would be the remedy for that. So let's say you're at, you know, you're out of the 120 meetings in the course of a year, you're at 61 and you're calling the mayor and manager and saying, I have an unforeseen event for work or a health concern or childcare issues. And, you get a 2/3 vote from the commission or with the consent of the mayor. That's a remedy for that. Again, trying to find ways to be flexible to the commissioner's points, but still offer some guardrails, I guess, for lack of a better word, for those that are interested.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Something I was just gonna mention is that I think one thing this might help people when they're thinking about, okay, is this, I'm interested in local government, I might want to run for office. What am I getting myself into? Right now, we don't have necessarily, like, it's hard for someone to go find this kind of information of like, how would my life fit into a position like this? I think that this maybe helps give some idea as to what is expected. I mean, if I was still teaching in the classroom, I would not have run for the city commission. There is no possible way I could be a good teacher and be on the city commission. It's just not the reality given the government structure that we have. I'm fortunate that I, when I was applying for jobs, that's some of the thing I was looking at is like, okay, what is a place that could be, supportive and flexible enough for me to be able to do this? I am on the road a lot. I mean, sometimes the city clerk knows that sometimes I'm like driving in from Wolf Point right before meetings, but it's one of those things that, we all schedule our lives around the commitments that we have, whether it's, Grand Street or soccer or, softball league or work. And I think this maybe might give community members that are interested in running a better idea of what they'd be getting into, because it's not an easy job and it is a lot of hours and it is a lot of work. And we want it to be accessible to people. I mean, the local government review didn't pass. So that there could be other ways for us to look at, how do we remedy things, but I don't want people to walk in blindsided either and think that I guess I don't believe that you're less effective when you're not here. We lose out on perspective when, we don't have that collaborative voice at the table, because I think every commissioner always brings a diverse set of perspectives, and it creates better policy when we have those in the room as much as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think to that point, with just a slightly different angle, I think there was a legislator in the last session, Mallory Stromswald from Billings, who resigned and wrote a letter about how it was impossible for her to serve, given the requirements that were put upon her. And I'm just concerned that we will put these requirements out and people who are teachers won't be able to serve. And I don't want to lose those voices. I don't want to lose a whole category of residents who will say, you know what, I just can't make it work. That seems to me to be a real shame. So I'm wondering if there is a way to, split the difference. Again, I appreciate the point of in-person participation. I would just like to maybe, whether or not we add in as one of the criteria on 9, again, understand there are remedies, caregiving as an acceptable category to miss more than 50% because of, a new parent. Wouldn't it be sad if somebody felt like they had to resign or not run because they had a family? That to me seems like a shame, and having experienced how hard it is to make that work, I don't want people to feel like they can't do it because of a requirement like that.
That's a great issue.
Yeah. So, like Ms. Clerk Claire Bourne said, we can still forward some information to her. She will still be able to tweak this, and so nothing is set in stone at this time because we're sharing ideas to see how best we can make this workable. So,
Mr. Mayor, quick comment. So Commissioner Reed, I hope you understand my question was not harsh. No. I didn't mean for it to be. I guess I was trying to figure out how we winnow this idea of should we have limitations or not. And if the 5 of us think we should not have any kind of limitation in that, and that someone can zoom in 100% of the time, then we really don't need this. But I think I think the question now sort of think I have an understanding listening to the discussion that it's like, where do we draw the line or how or
Right.
that sort of thing. I think what we're doing with this is setting an expectation of us as a commission and so, you know, how do we go about that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor, just plant the seed, commissioners. I don't have a recommendation here, but something that you might want to ponder is similar to the statute that requires commission approval if you're going to be out of town more than 10 days. Maybe you pick a time frame that if you haven't been in person for a number of meetings, to continue that, that requires the approval of the commission. So that you can work it out amongst yourselves, similar to being gone and out of town for a period of time. And then that doesn't put absolutes in place.
That's an idea.
But it requires that you communicate with each other as to whether it's working or not for all five of you.
It's a good idea. Good idea. Any other comments from the commission? Do we have any public comments on this topic? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bob Jones, local. Just a thought around the same question is, and I'm hiding my legal image over. There is a model, the ADA compliance, an idea of a reasonable accommodation. So there's an existing model that you might visit.
Yeah.
Got that in there.
For the public's edification, that ADA requirements are included in the correct solution. And just as a quick follow-up to all of this, I really appreciate the feedback. This is, and the managers thought this is very helpful. This is kind of the start of a new world order for a lot of us, and a lot of communities are trying to figure out the best way forward using the new technology. As I mentioned to commissioners earlier today, we are going to be switching on the type of Zoom platform we use for the meetings. So the technology itself is constantly evolving, and not having a policy in place, I think, leaves us open to interpretation at all times, and that can create confusion or frustration in the long run. So I really do appreciate all of the feedback.
Any other public comments? Do we have any online?
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment.
Thank you. Consider claiming city interest in property near Armory. City Attorney Doctor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I will heed your admonition, even though you didn't give it, to make this quick. And I just want to tell you, it might be bad form to put lawyers at the end of your agenda. So just say. So this is an agenda item, is to consider claiming city's interest in lots 1 through 6 in block 55 of the Central Edition, number 3. You have a map in your packet that shows where that property is. It's generally in between Northwest Chance Gulch and the YMCA, next to the Armory. It is property that came to our attention as city ownership through D&M Development. Marcus Bonda brought this to our attention that when they went to transfer what they thought they owned to St. Peter's Health for some health facility expansion, they learned that perhaps they didn't own the property. So at that time, City Attorney's Office took it in-house through Matt Pettish in my office to do title search through resolutions, through city records, and did come up with an opinion that we do indeed own it, though the intent of whether or not we owned it is in question. Whether or not we wanted to own it was in question. Simply because the state of Montana since 1992 doesn't have it on their books that the city of Helena owns this piece of property. And the state of Montana transferred in 2016 to D&M Development the property, and D&M has been paying taxes on it since 2016. So in trying to resolve the issue of a title confusion, I queried the directors in the city manager, anyone who might have some interest or need for this property, and none of whom wanted to keep ownership of this property. If you know where we're talking about, it's fairly small. It's a kind of a, you know, it looks like a ditch, honestly, when you look at it. And St. Pete's Health has some need to use it in their health facility expansion. So we would come to you if there's a consensus here today to take this to the next commission meeting. Well, the one that we can get to after we would send out.
Please.
Not the 29th, okay. Fair. We still have to send out notices to neighboring properties within 300 feet of the property, and then do a public hearing notice, add an agenda.
Got on the 29th.
And so we would bring it back to you for consideration at that time, after we take public comment and notify the neighbors. That's all I have. Marcus Bonda from D&M Development is here to answer any questions, if there are any questions to him. And then Matt Pettish is here in case you have questions about where we looked, how we looked, what the results were.
So who paid the taxes before 2016?
Nobody, because it was
It was with the state.
Yeah.
Oh.
And finally, as the city attorney said, this has been vetted through all city departments. Our recommendation would be approval to clean up the cover.
Thank you. Comments or questions from
Mr. Mayor, it was approval of that, right?
Here's a quick question. So is there any payment happening between like city, DNM, and St. Pete's?
There would not be.
Okay.
From what I understand, and this could be a question directed to Marcus Bonda, but from what I understand, they would donate the property to St. Pete's for their use as the health facility expansion. So,
Commissioners, that's our intent, is to donate the property.
Okay.
Well, we were donating it when we figured out.
Okay. Any other comments?
Sounds good.
Public comments? Madam Clerk, any online?
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment online.
All right, well, I guess.
that was fast.
At this time, is there anyone from the public wishes to address the commission? Any online, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment online.
Commissioners, any final comments? This meeting is adjourned.